Hey Dungeon Masters, Game Masters, Storytellers of all stripes. Are you tired of drowning in a sea of disorganized notes? Do you ever wish you could hit undo on a campaign change that you made 3 sessions ago? Or maybe you just dream of having a dedicated assistant to handle all of the tedious world building tasks? Well, what if I told you there's a tech stack that can transform your game preparation from chaotic to incredibly efficient, safeguarding your lore and even sparking new creative ideas? Today we're going to dive into the powerhouse combination of Obsidian, Git, and the Gemini-CLI. This isn't a how to set up everything tutorial, this is about understanding why these three tools, when wielded together, are the secret weapon every modern dungeon master could use, or at least should be aware of. So first up, let's talk about Obsidian. Imagine a digital brain for your entire campaign. That's Obsidian. At its core, it's a powerful, local-first, note-taking application that uses Markdown formatting. But for GMs, it's so much more. So why is it a game changer? Interconnected notes. With simple Obsidian-style links, which look like this, you can connect every NPC to the locations that they're at, plot hooks to factions, abilities or spells to characters or monsters. Every secret they know and every plot they've tangled in, no more endless searching. This is a dual Star Wars campaign that I'm co-running that follows two parties of Padawans after the events of Order 66. One set of Padawans escapes and goes on the run, and the other set gets turned into acolytes of the Inquisition. Everywhere you look, where you see the underlines, these are notes that I have created that help connect the campaign. So for example, this is an armor, a specialized armor that I've created for a player. Down here we have weapon effects that I've loaded in these notes that give me quick cheat sheets of what the weapon effect does. Similarly, the talents, I've got that information loaded in so that I can see quickly what the talents do and how many ranks in those talents they have. Obsidian has a graph view. This visually stunning feature allows you to see the relationships between all of your campaign elements. It's an incredible way to uncover plot holes, lost ideas, spot new connections, or simply marvel at the complexity of your own world. Obsidian is a tinkerer's dream. With community plugins, you can create these stat blocks, you can automate dice rolls, you can do initiative trackers with a pop-out window that you can show to your players. You can build maps that have interactive elements that can connect to your notes. And there's just tons of resources to help you better control your own notes. This is a galaxy map that I loaded in where I have these locations linked. So if I want to see what information I have on a specific location where they've maybe been, I can put it on the map, link it. We can zoom and scroll and drag and do all sorts of stuff if my computer will let me. And then you can also click into it and see that note. Obsidian notes are stored in what's called Markdown format, which is future-proof. Even if you down the line decide that Obsidian's not the application for you, there are plenty of other applications that can read Markdown files. You're not locked into a proprietary format with Obsidian. And furthermore, all of Obsidian files are stored locally on your computer. If you ever want to play offline, you don't need an internet connection to access your data. It is all right on your file system, in your file system. Now, if Obsidian is your campaign's brain, then Git is its memory, its safety net, and a way to share specific resources. Git is a version control system, typically used by software developers, but it is perfect for DMs. Think of Git as an infinite undo button for your entire campaign. Every time you make a significant change, designing a new dungeon, or detailing an NPC, writing a session summary, you commit those changes. This saves a snapshot of your entire campaign. Accidentally delete a crucial NPC? No problem. Just revert to an earlier version and poof, they're back. Git also allows you to experiment fearlessly. Do you want to do an alternate timeline where your party is maybe going through into an alternate universe? You don't want it to be canon, but it's just kind of like a one-shot fun thing. You can branch your campaign and then do all of this modifications to it. And when you're ready to go back and continue the main campaign without this weird side aberration, you can just go back to your main branch. Although it takes some setting up, you can also use Git as a collaboration tool for specific elements of your campaign. So for example, inside characters, I'm experimenting with the idea of having individual character files, this is my player characters, having their information stored in a separate repository that gets linked as a submodule to this main repository. This allows me to share this sub-repository with that player, and that player and I can collaborate on their character. We can do keep track of maybe character specific goals they have, all in this sub-module that from my perspective is just right a part of this campaign. And when I sync these files down to my local drive, although it takes some amount of doing to get it set up correctly, I have these files all inside my local my Obsidian as if they're just one large cohesive file structure. In a similar manner, I'm experimenting with the idea of having the session summaries stored in a submodule where I can share the session summaries repository with my party and we can collaborate on what happened in a session. They have access to this. This shows up in my Obsidian notes, but they don't have access to the rest of my campaign information. One last advantage I want to talk about is I use submodules for the rules of the system I'm working with. I've compiled a fairly extensive list of just like a summary of some of these rules so that I can quick reference them from my notes. Now, if I ever run a system, ever run a campaign in this system again, I can take this repository and attach it as a submodule to another campaign, and that will allow me to have all of these same information that I've compiled here in that other campaign ready to be linked in Obsidian. And here's where we enter the future of DMing, the Gemini-CLI. This isn't just another chatbot, it's an intelligent AI agent that interacts directly with your campaign notes and the underlying Git system, all through a simple command line interface. Because Gemini-CLI is operating within your campaign's directory, it can understand your lore. It can read your Obsidian notes, your NPC backstories, your location details. It's not just a generic AI, it's an AI that can know your world. I have noticed that I have an NPC here named Crag, who I don't have a lot of information about him. Let's say I want to build out a full NPC file. I can tell Gemini to go grab this information and then build that information out for me. It will take a couple minutes, but what I'll be left with is a decent NPC file that I didn't have to manually write. Now, I know there are going to be a lot of people that feel like this is a step away from true GMing, where you're creating the story and whatnot, but the fact of the matter is that all the tedium of creating details is not what I enjoy about GMing. Now, we can see that it has found that there is no current file for Crag, and it has just created this file. It's going to ask me for permission, which I'm going to go ahead and allow for this session, and it has built out a little bit more information. Now, I did notice that it has not yet created the backlinks from here to that NPC file. So I'm going to say create the links to this character from Crag's Armory. And what Gemini is now going to do is go into that MD file, which we can see here, and it's going to replace Crag with a link. Now he's all linked, so I can, if I stop it being in source mode, I can click from him into this information. Now he's backlinked to Nar Shaddaa, which is the planet he's found on, but I notice he's not backlinked to his specific armory. So if you want to manually add a link, I can go in here and I can say Crag's Armory. This is another plugin I'm using that helpfully just pops everything up for me. So now I've got Crag, he's associated with his armory, and I've got a bit more details about him. Now, we do have some information, but it's not a lot. I found that my party tends to find these random NPCs that I have to create on the fly, and they want to know their entire life story. So I'm going to have Gemini now have way more, make Crag have way more information. I want backstory, family, love life, enemies, etc. Again, it's going to take a few minutes, but we should be left with a much more rounded out Crag. After it's finished, we can see that it created a lot more details. Crag now has more information on his personality, we've got backstory, we've got relationships, etc. Now, I have used this on the fly during a campaign session to generate details where I wasn't prepared for my party to go. It can be used. The delay and that it takes for Gemini to interact with makes it not ideal for real-time generation, but especially if the party starts talking about maybe going to this place and you start to panic and you realize you don't have a lot of information, you can sometimes quickly type up like, hey, I need more information on this, and have Gemini work, while inevitably your party just argues about where to go next. The best way to think about Gemini, though, is this is an office assistant that can work so you don't have to. So let's say that I need, for some reason, a timeline of the sessions that links which locations were went to during which sessions. That is something that Gemini can do in the background while I either do other work or while I walk away from my computer. It's allowed me to easily 10 times my productivity while working on sessions, to be able to have this assistant that can go through my files, pull the information that I need, and do something. There have been times when I've needed to make mass updates of NPCs that I need them to include a specific property for some reason, and I can just say, hey, go through the NPCs and do this. Similarly, when I've created these rule files where they explain what specific weapon attributes do, for example, I can tell the Gemini-CLI, hey, we just created all of these new notes. Please go through all of my other files and search for places where it seems like it should link to these new notes. Check for these notes. Check for links to be created and go through and create those links. Now, results will vary, and you have to double check that it didn't do something you don't want it to do. But as long as you are essentially micromanaging it a little bit, it can very, very quickly allow you to do way more modifications to your data, way more data analysis than you could possibly do by yourself. It's allowed me to have a cleaner campaign structure and create more detail within the campaign that I am running. I talked earlier about how the Git structure with submodules can get complicated. But Gemini-CLI is another way that you can also help manage that complications. So I have all these submodules created inside the main module, and inside what's called the Gemini MD file. This is essentially a file that Gemini preloads itself with when you start Gemini from your command line. That contains information about the repository you're in, so it kind of knows some amount of context. Inside that Gemini MD file, I explain all of the Git structure that it has, so that way it can relatively easily find these submodules, know what it's doing, and be able to push all of the changes to the submodules when needed. Currently, I'm just having it explain it. We've got dedicated, we can see we have dedicated repositories for 2 of my characters, the session summaries, and rules. Now I'm going to have it, we'll push all changes to the origins. And we can see that it's going to add all files. It's going to go through each of these separate repositories, push those changes, make sure everything's completely synchronized with Git. I'm going to have it commit all changes within the Obsidian directory. Don't add the video. And commit and push all submodules, then the main repo. This alone makes the entry-level difficulty for doing all of this much, much lower. Again, you've got to trust and verify. You do have to give it some information as you're setting up these repositories, but when I set up some of the submodules, what I did is I basically told it, hey, I want this folder to become a submodule. Here is the GitHub link to where it's going to get pushed to, and it can take care of the rest. Again, I'm not going to put together a tutorial of how to set up everything here, but the Gemini-CLI is incredibly powerful, and it can make this way easier to get into. I'm going to pause and come back when it is finished, and we'll talk about some wrap-up stuff. And after a few minutes, it is finished. Now, one thing you will notice about this is that it didn't quite get everything on the first try, but one of the powerful things about the Gemini-CLI is it can figure out what's going on and try to fix it. So, for example, down here, we were trying to exclude the videos folder from this git push, and it realized that it didn't manage to exclude it. So it tries a few different attempts to unstage that, and then it finally, once it's satisfied that it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do, it pushes this into Git. So that is my quick introduction to how Obsidian and Git and the Gemini CLI can work together to really amplify your campaign. Now, I am going to have links down in the description to other people's videos where you can learn how to set up all of these tools. And like I said earlier, I am going to do in the future a quick video that basically explains some of these plugins that I am using, and on those I'll have links to other people's videos where you can see how to set those up as well. Thank you so much for watching, and if you think this was a useful video, please send it to someone else who might find it useful, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks.